Welcome back to Talking Wolves. It's another match preview, another game in the Premier League, and Wolves are back at Molineux hosting at Chelsea. Both clubs gone through quite a busy week for different things, but we'll get into that shortly. And of course, we've got the opposition preview later on in the video with a Chelsea fan as well. But Wolves coming into this game desperate for points. It was a point at the City ground against Nottingham Forest last week, which was a really disappointing performance by Wolves. Could have really done with the 3 points, but you probably take the point considering how poor Wolves were. And we've really got to go into this game at Chelsea looking to get something. At the start of the season, you probably would have almost put this game, you would have written this game off because Chelsea on paper are a really good side, but they're struggling this season. Had a great campaign. They're only a couple of places above us in the league as well, but things have changed there over the last few days or so. So really unsure what to expect for Chelsea. Of course, what I'm talking about there is that Graham Potter, their old manager now, was sacked on Sunday, and as of today, they've reinstated Frank Lampard as caretaker or interim manager until the end of the season. So his first game in charge will be against Wolves at Molineux. The last time Chelsea beat Wolves at Molineux was actually under Frank Lampard a few years ago. So it's going to be really interesting to see what sort of impact that he has on the Chelsea team. Are they going to get the sort of new manager bounce, or will it just be same old Chelsea? It's a really big opportunity for Wolves to get some points. And all these home games between now and the end of the season have got to be where Wolves look to get something out of each and every game. Since COVID, really, the atmosphere has been really poor at Molineux. There's only been a handful of games, really, where you felt the atmosphere was back to where it was once before COVID. And, of course, you can also always blame the quality of football. I think when you score goals, as fans, you're happier, you want to cheer more, you want to sing more. But every single Wolves fan has got to make their voices be heard on Saturday. We've got to make Molineux a fortress. And yeah, there's people that will moan on Twitter or social media about the atmosphere, but we'll just stand there in silence for the majority of the game. So we've all got to, sing our hearts out for the lads and fingers crossed help them get it across the line and get something out of the game on Saturday. Now, it's been quite an eventful week for Wolves as well. Lopetegui had his press conference today. I like it being on a Thursday, actually. It gives me a chance to know actually what's gonna be happening when I upload the preview on a Thursday. The press conference was today. The first big thing that I suppose is another thing, probably more for the podcast. We spoke about it a little bit on our podcast that was released this week, was about Daniel Podence. Now, this sort of alleged spitting incident between him and Brennan Johnson has gone to the FA. The FA have charged him and obviously going to be looking at that. Podence and Lopetegui, who spoke about it on his pre-match press conference, said it 100% certain Podence did not spit towards the Nottingham Forest player. I imagine, I think the Wolves have got until next Wednesday, to give their thoughts on it. And I suppose probably this time next week we're going to have a hearing about what happens to Daniel Podence, basically. Ignoring that, Hwang Hee-chan is the player that is fit and available to play against Chelsea as well. Again, I think Hwang Hee-chan has had a lot of stick from me included towards the end of last season. I was really fed up with his performances, but I know he's been sort of stop-start this season, been in and out of the team, but whenever he's been in the team, especially under Lopetegui, Wolves look a really good team with his pressing and his energy. So I wouldn't be against him possibly coming in to start. Obviously, Ruben Neves unfortunately suspended for this game. Again, I'm going to be really intrigued to see how Lopetegui sets up this midfield and how we can sort of replace Ruben Neves's maybe control of the game, his quality in the midfield. I'm going to be really interested to see how we approach that. Let's go into my predicted lineup. It's so hard to go for. In goal, Jose Sarr, obviously. Semedo right back again. I think Dawson and Kilman will probably keep their places. I think Hugo Bueno in at left back. I think that's possibly maybe a tad harsh on Totti Gomez, who had an okay game against Forest. We still don't know what's going on with Ryan Ait-Nouri, although he was at the open training session on Wednesday, sporting a fresh new haircut. Midfield three is so hard for me. I would assume it'll be Lamina, Nunes, and Martinho. I would love to see João Gomez get another start in there, though. Possibly Nunes, Gomez, and Lamina in there. With a front three of, well, Pedence probably after his goal. I think you need Cunha in there again, and maybe Sarabia, but and that's only because Huang's only just come back from fitness. But I really don't know. It's such a hard team to pick. I think the options are there again. Obviously, Lopetegui would have seen them in training throughout the last week or so, and will have a better idea than me. And of course, you can go and check out the Betmate game as well this week. It's a Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs. A link to join is in the top of the description down below. You can select from all the 3 p.m. kickoffs a team, enter, and have your chance to win some cash. My team this week, I've gone with Emi Martinez in goal. Back Newcastle 2 of Kieran Trippier and Dan Burn because they've been on fire over the last couple of games. Alexis McAllister and Enzo Fernandez in the midfield there. And Ollie Watkins, who again is another player on fire, with Harry Kane up front. So be sure to check that out. A link is in the top of the description to join the Betmate. And if you enter one of the paid pots, you will get a £10 bonus if you use our link as well. So then, guys, delighted to be alongside Charlie from the Blues Brothers YouTube channel. Charlie, thanks for joining me. How you keeping, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so it's never a dull day following Chelsea, and we've got the news now that Frank Lampard is going to be caretaker manager for the rest of the season. We'd never have expected that at the start of the season, but let's see what impact, if any impact, he can have to try and save our season and get us as high up the table as possible. Just get us into the top half. I'd be happy with for now.
I know it's been a crazy season for Chelsea. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit more, get into the managerial situation as well, but I was saying on our preview earlier, almost at the start of the season, you look at this game, you almost have it as a write-off because you expect Chelsea to be winning a lot more games than they're dropping points in. But I think Wolves fans will go into this feeling like they could possibly get something out of the match. Charlie, I know obviously Lampard's come in, but what's been sort of your thoughts overall this season so far? Because, I mean, I could probably tell it's been a huge disappointment, surely.
Yeah, it's been terrible, mate. It's been worse than I think any of us would have expected. I think, look, it was clear at the start of the season that, we didn't expect that much. I mean, even if Thomas Tuchel had stayed, still a lot of Chelsea fans didn't expect us to finish in the top four. It was kind of just the way we were going. The league form prior to Potter wasn't the best either. Even under Tuchel, our league form was pretty poor. Both times just scraping into the top four. And then obviously we were on a downward spiral at the start of the season, getting hammered by Leeds, terrible performance at Southampton, dreadful performance away at Zagreb in the Champions League. And then he was dismissed. And I think it was a surprise in terms of the fact that, no one kind of expected it, but also not a surprise in terms of new owners come in and they generally want to have their own person kind of in charge, which, okay, that's cool. I get it. It wasn't a popular decision, but it is what it is. These things happen. Graham Potter comes in, and we started reasonably well. It's easy to forget now that he's gone, and he's obviously gone down as statistically the worst manager in Chelsea's history, which is that's facts. But we started pretty well. We were unbeaten in the first 9 games under him, 2 wins over Milan, home and away. But Potter, as time went on, it was clear that all the problems that have been at Chelsea over the years were still there. And he just didn't have the personality, the charisma, or I think the know-how in a big job with big players, big egos, massive pressure compared to Brighton. He just didn't have it in the locker to ultimately turn it around. And I was a big fan of his, a big backer of him, a lot more than I kept faith in him a lot longer than other Chelsea fans did. Yeah. But ultimately, it just got to a point where we just couldn't continue because every week it was just getting worse and worse. We take a step forward with a couple of wins on the spin, then take a few steps back. And it was clear we weren't going anywhere. It's clear it was the wrong appointment. And, we've kind of just found ourselves in a mess this season, spent all this money, and we're just, at the moment, we've not really got any idea. So that's why, this next appointment has got to be absolutely spot on, because otherwise, we could be setting ourselves even further back as we try and get this project kind of up and running again. But Lampard in for the rest of the season, I think it's a smart move in terms of, we clearly can't get who we want, or they want to take a little bit of extra time to make sure they absolutely get it right. So you're not going to get a top manager in to literally manage 10 games of the season. it's not quite possible. So Lampard was the smart choice in terms of club legend, knows the club inside out, will raise the spirits around the place, will kind of command respect, will reinstall the club values at such, which I feel got a little bit lost under Graham Potter. But let's make things perfectly clear. No one's expecting any miracles from Frank Lampard because one, it's going to be very tough. We've got a really tough set of fixtures coming up. And two, with the greatest respect, at this point in his career, he's not the best manager. But is it so? Like, I think we know the way I look at it is, if we're going to be poor and we're going to be struggling, let's at least have Lampard with Ashley Cole and a backroom staff and make ourselves feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, mate, it's been a mad season, and you know we've got a hell of a ride for the last 10 games.
I was sort of pleasantly surprised, I suppose, at the reaction when I saw the tweet go out about Lampard, because obviously there were whispers about it yesterday and it sort of accelerated this morning. It was a lot of support in the sort of replies on Twitter, at least towards Lampard. I thought I'd see a few negative comments, which I'm sure you'll always get with most fan bases, but there is a lot of support towards him, which I suppose I didn't realise things were that bad under Potter. You know, like you said earlier, I think sort of similar sort of thing. I think he has got a place in the Premier League in the future. There's no doubt he's a good manager, but I think the jump to Chelsea was obviously a little bit too much too soon. But fair play to Lampard. Are you sort of excited? What sort of in your mind, if he does really well between now and the end of the season, what's the situation for him? Or do you think it's more for him to sort of put a positive light on his CV again for his next job?
I think it's more what you've just said there. I think, like, for him personally, he'll have ambitions. If I do well, then maybe I can put myself in the frame for a permanent job. But I think from the owner's perspective, it's very clear that you're here for 10 games. We're carrying out our exhaustive search for a new manager, making sure we're absolutely getting it right. And under no circumstances are you getting the permanent job. That's how they'll see it. But from Lampard's perspective, and he said as much in a press conference that, you know, he believes that if he does well, then he could be in the frame for the permanent job. You know, he's not going to come out and kind of say that he's not. At the same time, you know, like, Lampard is not the answer. You know, he's not become a better manager from when he was first at Chelsea. Yes, he kept Everton up, but then this season was an absolute shambles. And I know in difficult circumstances, Everton recruited really badly. Not a lot of backing in the transfer market, didn't replace Richarlison, X, Y, Z. But football was played there was terrible. He's not really improved as a manager since then. And this for him is a massive opportunity in the spotlight to, if he does well, get himself back in the frame and back in owners' minds for any possible Premier League jobs that are available, i.e. Leicester City or Crystal Palace, or maybe even West Ham.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think I sort of, again, it was a stat that popped up earlier that the last time Chelsea beat Wolves at Molineux was a few years ago under Frank Lampard as well. I remember that game. I'm sure you smashed us on a Saturday afternoon. But one of the issues for Chelsea as well this season has been goals scored. Very similar to Wolves. We've had this issue for a number of years now, but I'm surprised to see that 29 goals is it this season for Chelsea in the league, which is so low for a team, and especially with the amount of money that has been spent. I think there's some top players at Chelsea. I think some of the players that have been signed are good players, and it just needs the right coach to sort of get his ideas in, and maybe this summer balance the squad a little bit better. Like, obviously João Felix is a top player who I really enjoy watching. But who have been the sort of the standouts? Who are players that Wolves really need to look out for on Saturday?
I mean, we've not had many standout players this season, but having said that, I think in terms of defensively, and again, we're not sure what side Lampard's going to pick. Is he going to stick with the back three we've used predominantly for the last few months? Is he going to go back to a four? You know, he's not had an awful lot of time to implement anything tactically. So for me personally, it would kind of make sense to stick with what we've been doing, but who knows? But I think from a defensive point of view, obviously Reece James and Ben Chilwell, massive players for us. If they play wing back, they're going to be so crucial to how well or not well we do. Enzo Fernandez in the middle of the park has been a revelation since he came in. Yes, I know it was a lot of money, but he's not put a foot wrong in any of the games he's played. He's been absolutely superb. He's one to look out for there. Obviously, everyone knows about N'Golo Kante, but, you know, that he started against Wolves on Tuesday night, first start since August. He was unbelievable. He was phenomenal. What world-class player. So he's one to look out for, not in terms of a threat in the opposition box or anything, but just what he does in the middle of the park. And I think with Ruben Neves obviously out suspended for Wolves, that's going to be he would have been key in trying to maybe keep the shackles on Kante a little bit and whatnot. So that's going to be a big miss for Wolves. And then In the front line, we've not really done anything. But as you said, João Felix is a phenomenal footballer. I know the end product's not there, but you can see the class he's got.
Yeah.
Whether Raheem Sterling comes back into the lineup or not can be a threat on his day. I think if Mudryk plays, he's unpredictable. He's got that pace. He's good with the ball at his feet. But again, he's raw and you don't really know what you're going to get from him. So I suppose really Enzo Fernandez and then probably Felix. And then defensively, James and Chilwell. But Fofana's also been superb for us as well.
Yeah, I watched the Liverpool game actually, and I thought Kante, bearing in mind he hadn't played in such a long time, was phenomenal. I thought he was fantastic. His work rate, he's quite comfortable on the ball as well. He was really, really good. But the funny thing about Enzo Fernandez is, and I don't know if many Chelsea fans know this, before he went to Benfica last summer, Wolves had a deal to sign him for 15 to 20 million pounds, and we turned it down because he wanted to stay and play in the Copa Libertadores. And obviously, less than 6 months later, he goes to you guys for close to 100 million. Yeah. So it's going to be a really tricky game for Wolves. I think, like I said, both teams struggling to score. Wolves desperate for some points. Obviously, Chelsea under Lampard are going to want to get some almost dignity, back and get their season sort of back on track. What's the aims for the rest of the season? Because you're still in the Champions League. Yeah. Do you think you can go any further in that competition? Or is the aim just to try and climb as high as you can in the Premier League?
Oh, the aim has got to be to get as high as we can in the Premier League, ideally playing some form of European football. I think we're not, yeah. I think the top four is forget it. We're 14 points off the top four. We've got a very tough run in. Europa League is still a possibility. Personally, I know it sounds a bit kind of not selfish, but like maybe sound a bit silly to people that follow teams that would give their arm to be in Europe. But I'd rather us not be in Europe than being in the Conference League. If that's the decision it's going to be. But look, aims in the league, win as many games as we can, get as high up that table as we can, try and get Europa League football. The Champions League is what we've got left to play for. Real Madrid, regardless of who's in charge, is always a massive, massive challenge in the Champions League. Regardless of their struggles in La Liga, they're just a different animal in the Champions League. It's going to be really tough. It is going to be tough. Do I think we're going to win the Champions League? No. But on the other hand, do I think stranger things have happened in football? Absolutely. You only have to look at the last 2 times we won the Champions League. No one expected it. We changed our managers both times. We won with Di Matteo as an interim, and then we sacked Lampard in the January, and Tuchel came in and won the Champions League. So, we have got previous of doing this, but I think the reality of the situation is, yes, we've got a good squad and some very talented players. The team's not functioning as a unit. We haven't got enough goals in the side, and we just don't have a good enough manager in the dugout in the key moments that are really going to count in ties like this. I think we could get through Madrid, but I'd be shocked if we went all the way. So I think it's just about steadying the ship in the Premier League, get us as high up the table as possible. And then whatever happens in the Champions League is a massive bonus.
Yeah, I sort of agree with your points about the Conference League, because I think although next season financially could be difficult for Chelsea, I think next season no European football could almost just give Todd Bowley and whoever's in charge a season just to sort of get a settled squad and really push on from there, because I think he's got the right intentions. The players that he's signing, the money that he's spending, he wants to make Chelsea, one of the giants in the Premier League again. But obviously, for whatever reason, this season's just not gone to plan. So if you can have just almost a transitional season next year, I think that could work for you. And Charlie, difficult question, but any score predictions for this Saturday's game?
Oh, it's tough because I was at Molineux the COVID season when we drew 0-0. Terrible game. I think we drew 0-0 last season as well. At Molineux. There tends to be a lot of draws, as you touched on before. I think the last time we won was under Lampard when we won 5-2. We played you earlier in the season. Actually, one of Graham Potter's best games in his Chelsea spell. We won 3-0 at the Bridge. Score prediction is going to be tough. We haven't got that many goals in us. We're not the best on the road either this season. Wolves fighting for their lives. I always say at this point of the season, it's really difficult when you go to teams that are fighting for their lives. They've got something to play for because they're going to be a little bit more up for it. Molineux's going to be in full voice, going to be trying to, acting as that 12th man to get Wolves the points they need to stay in a division. From a great story, it'd be great for a Lampard start with a win, but I think this has got a draw written all over it. I'm going to go with a 1-1.
1-1, yeah. I think it'll be very tight. I think if there is a winner, it'll probably only be a goal in it, to be honest. But as long as it's not a boring 0-0 again like last time. I remember that game. I think it was a Sunday afternoon, wasn't it, or something like that. It was an awful game.
It was awful.
Yeah. Charlie, thanks for joining me, man. If people want to check out your channel, where's the best places to find you?
Yeah, literally, if you just type in the Blues Brothers on YouTube, actually just put Chelsea after that as well, because there's a music one. It's not the music one. And then on my Twitter is literally at CharliePatrick0 if you want to check me out on there.
No problem. I'll make sure I leave a link in the description as well, Charlie. But yeah, apart from Saturday, all the best for the rest of the season, mate. And I'll catch you soon.
No, thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Really tough game for Wolves, guys, but Chelsea have had a wobbly season, so have we, and this is an opportunity maybe for Wolves to get some points on the board. A point I would take, both teams struggling for goals, maybe a 0-0 ball draw, but I suppose, I wonder if someone offered you 9 draws, so every game now a draw, it would probably keep you up, to be fair. But yeah, if we can, I just want to see a better performance from Wolves. I want to see a better atmosphere, I want to see a better Molineux, I want to see a better Wolves, and I want to see us get something out of this game. Guys, do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and fingers crossed on Saturday evening, we're going to be celebrating a victory. Until then, I'll see you next time.